Play something worth listening to at my gala next week and I'll adopt you. Fail. And don't you ever dare show your face near my building again. Those were the exact words of Richard Whitmore, Chicago's coldest billionaire, spoken to a shivering 12-year-old boy in front of a stunned crowd. And here's the question I want you to answer. Would you take that deal? Think about it. One chance, one stage, one song that could decide whether you get a home or lose the only corner of the city where you feel safe. Don't go anywhere, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a test. A test of cruelty, hope, and a single haunting melody that silenced 500 of Chicago's elite. The boy's name was Marcus, homeless, hungry, fingers raw from the November wind. But when they touched his battered keyboard, the city itself seemed to pause. That night, outside Whitmore Tower, his music wasn't just sound. It was survival. He played like every note was proof he still existed. People hurried past. Some dropped coins. Most ignored him. But then the glass doors of Whitmore Tower swung open, and out stepped Richard Whitmore himself. Silver hair perfect, suit worth more than a car, eyes colder than the Chicago wind. "Noise," he said loudly, drawing a small crowd. "You call this music? Real music requires culture, education, things clearly beyond your circumstances. Imagine being 12, holding on to the only thing you have left of your dead mother, a broken keyboard, and being told your dream is worthless. What would you do? Would you shrink? Would you give up? Or would you look that billionaire in the eyes and fight back?" Marcus didn't say a word. He just kept playing, his eyes closed, his body swaying. And that's when Whitmore made his cruel offer, 1 week. A charity gala with 500 of Chicago's richest men and women. If Marcus could impress even one of them, he'd be adopted, given a home, a future, a chance at life. But if he failed, and Whitmore was certain he would, Marcus would be banned forever from the only street corner where he felt seen. The crowd gasped. Some laughed nervously. Others whispered, "Is he serious?" And here's where I want you to lean in. Because Marcus, this starving boy in a coat 2 sizes too big, lifted his chin and said, "I'll take your challenge." Why? Why would a child risk everything for a chance so cruelly designed to make him fail? Stay with me, because what happens next will not only challenge your idea of music, it will challenge your idea of justice, privilege, and the human heart. And the twist? Marcus wasn't as alone as Whitmore thought. The November wind cut across downtown Chicago like it wanted to scrape the skin off anyone who dared walk without shelter. But on the corner of Madison and LaSalle, a boy sat on a battered cardboard mat, his fingers flying over a cracked Casio keyboard as if it were a grand piano. His name was Marcus. 12 years old, no home, no parents, nothing except an oversized coat with holes in the sleeves. And music. The melody he played was haunting, too big for that broken keyboard, too alive to belong to the streets. Some passers-by slowed down, drawn for a moment. A businessman dropped 2 crumpled dollars in his open case. A mother tugged her child along quickly, pretending Marcus didn't exist. And most didn't stop at all. 3 hours. That's how long he had been playing, his stomach aching with hunger, his body stiff from the cold. 3 hours, and he had earned exactly $7.43. Not even enough for a hot meal in Chicago. But he kept playing, because when Marcus played, the street noise, the hunger, the loneliness, all of it faded away. Music was the only thing that made sense anymore. Then the heavy glass doors of Whitmore Tower swung open, and out stepped Richard Whitmore himself. Silver hair slicked back, navy suit pressed to perfection, his wristwatch gleaming like another insult to everyone struggling just outside his empire. On either side of him walked 2 towering security guards and his sharp-eyed assistant, Victoria Chen. Marcus didn't notice them at first. His eyes were closed, lost in the song. But Richard heard it, the notes hanging in the frozen air. He stopped. His guards moved to push the crowd aside, but he raised a hand. "Wait," he said. His voice cut through the wind like steel. Marcus struck a wrong note, startled. His eyes flew open, and there they were, the city's most powerful man staring down at a boy who barely had shoes. "Well, well," Richard's voice boomed. Another street performer contaminating the air with noise. People turned. Phones came out. A small crowd formed, sensing something was about to happen. Marcus swallowed hard. "I'm just playing music, sir." Richard laughed, a cold, sharp laugh that made Marcus's chest tighten. "Music? You call that music? That's noise. Real music requires culture, education, training, things far beyond your circumstances." His words weren't just dismissive. They were designed to cut, to humiliate. The boy's small hands froze on the keys. Around him, whispers stirred. Someone muttered, "That's cruel." Another shook their head, but no one stepped forward. Richard reached into his wallet, pulled out a crisp $100 bill and waved it in the air so everyone could see. "You want this, boy? I'll make you a deal. Next Saturday, my charity gala. 500 of Chicago's finest will be there. You show up, you play something worth listening to, and if you impress even one person," Richard smirked, pausing for effect, "I'll adopt you. I'll give you a home, an education, a future." The crowd gasped. Victoria's eyes widened. But Richard wasn't finished. His smile twisted cruel. "And when you fail, and you will fail, you will never show your face near my building again. Ever. Take your noise somewhere else." The street went silent. Every eye on the boy, every breath waiting for his answer. Marcus looked down at the $100 bill. His heart pounded. He thought of warm food, a bed, maybe even a chance at something more. But he also saw the sneer on Richard's face, the arrogance, the certainty that he would lose. And that's when Marcus did something nobody expected. He lifted his chin, looked the billionaire in the eye, and said quietly but firmly, "Keep your 100. I'll take your challenge." Marcus packed up his keyboard slowly, the $100 bill still lying in the open case. He didn't touch it. The crowd dispersed in uneasy silence, whispers trailing into the night. But one woman, elderly and kind-eyed, stopped and pressed a crumpled $5 bill into his hand. She leaned close and whispered, "Don't let him break you, baby. Men like that think they own the world. Show him they don't." Her words stayed with him as he trudged toward St. Mary's shelter, the duct-taped keyboard case bumping against his side. Inside, the warmth hit him like a wave, but it couldn't chase away the weight pressing on his chest. Marcus, Angela Robinson, the shelter's social worker, spotted him immediately. She'd been looking after him for 2 years, ever since he showed up clutching that keyboard like a lifeline. "What's wrong, baby? You look like you've seen a ghost." He set the keyboard down carefully and told her everything. The billionaire, the challenge, the threat. As he spoke, her face shifted from concern to anger to something like fear. "Richard Whitmore," she muttered the name like it was poison. "That man's foundation gives us donations, but he doesn't care about people. He cares about power, Marcus. He's setting you up to fail. This isn't kindness. It's a game to him. But what if I win?" Marcus whispered. His voice trembled, but there was a spark in his eyes. "What if this is my chance to get out of here?" Angela reached for his hands. They were icy cold. "Baby, I've watched you play your heart out on that corner for 2 years. You are gifted. But men like Whitmore, they don't see gifts. They see pawns." Before Marcus could respond, a younger voice chimed in. Diamond, a 10-year-old girl from the shelter, had wandered over. "Play the song you wrote," she urged. "The one about the trains. That one always makes me cry." Angela's eyebrows shot up. "You write your own music?" Marcus looked down, embarrassed. "Mama taught me. She said anyone can play other people's songs. But when you write your own, that's how you talk to God." The room went quiet. The other kids at the shelter, Trey, Jose, Diamond, were listening now, their homework forgotten. Angela's voice softened. "Marcus, you really think you can make Richard Whitmore listen?" Marcus straightened, the spark in his eyes burning brighter. "I have to try. What's the worst that can happen? I'm already sleeping in a shelter. I'm already hungry. He can't take away what I don't have." But deep inside, Marcus knew it wasn't that simple. That corner outside Whitmore Tower, the place where his mother once told him the city might hear him, was more than just concrete. It was his stage, his only connection to something bigger. Now he had 1 week. 1 week to prove that music wasn't about money, privilege, or breeding. It was about soul. The only question was, would anyone really listen? Thursday morning, Marcus stood outside a dusty storefront sandwiched between a dry cleaner and a Dominican restaurant. The faded sign read, "Wilson's Music and More." He clutched a folder Angela had given him the night before. Inside was an address, a photo of this very store, and a grainy picture of a man she believed might be his father. His real father. For 20 minutes, Marcus just stood there, his battered keyboard case digging into his shoulder, his stomach churning. Could it be true? After all these years of being alone, could he really have family? Finally, he pushed the door open. The bell above chimed. The air smelled of wood polish and sheet music. Instruments hung from every wall, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. And there, behind the counter, was the man from the photo, older now, with gray hair and tired eyes, tuning a guitar with practiced ease. "Help you, young man?" the man asked, not looking up at first. Marcus swallowed hard. His voice barely worked. "I need to practice for a performance." "I can pay." He fished the crumpled $100 bill from his pocket, the one Whitmore had tossed into his case. The man finally looked up. His eyes softened at the sight of the boy clutching his keyboard. "That's a lot of money for a kid your age. You in some kind of trouble?" The story tumbled out before Marcus could stop himself. The challenge, the gala, the humiliation waiting for him. The man listened, still as stone. When Marcus finally stopped, the man said one name, Whitmore. He spat it like it was acid. "That man tried to buy my entire vintage collection 5 years ago. Wanted to hang instruments on his office walls like trophies. I refused. He tried to buy the building to force me out. Lucky for me, the owner's my friend. I told him to shove his offer." Despite his nerves, Marcus cracked a small smile. "Sounds like him." Then his voice faltered. "My name's Marcus Thompson. My mother was Denise Thompson." The change in the man was instant. The guitar pick slipped from his fingers. His face went pale. "Denise," he whispered. "You're Denise's boy?" Marcus nodded slowly. "You knew her?" "Knew her?" The man moved around the counter like he was in a dream. Up close, Marcus saw it, the same eyes, the same long fingers built for piano keys. "My God, I'm James Wilson." "Marcus, I'm your father." The words slammed into him harder than Whitmore's cruelty ever had. His knees wobbled. His breath caught. For 12 years, he'd been nobody's son. Just a boy with a broken keyboard and a memory of his mother. Now, suddenly, he wasn't alone. The workshop in the back of Wilson's Music smelled of varnish and old wood. Guitars hung half-finished, violins sat on benches, and in the corner stood a majestic 7-foot Steinway Grand, its polished surface gleaming under the soft light. James sat heavily on a stool, staring at Marcus like he was afraid to blink and lose him. "I met your mother at a jazz club," he said finally, voice low. She was fire. Walked in one night, asked to sit at the piano. They laughed until she played. After that, nobody laughed at Denise Thompson again. Marcus listened, torn between awe and bitterness. "Then what happened? Why'd you leave?" James's shoulders sagged. "I was young, stupid, an addict. I thought walking away was protecting you. Worst mistake of my life. I got clean too late. When I came back, she was gone, and you—" His voice broke. "I've been searching for you ever since." Marcus wanted to scream, to cry, to say 12 years was too long. But instead, he opened his battered keyboard, set it on the workbench, and began to play. The notes filled the workshop, raw and aching. A song he'd written himself. A song about loneliness. James froze, tears sliding down his cheeks. When Marcus stopped, James whispered, "You play like her. But there's something else, too. Something that's just you." For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. Then James crossed to the Steinway and lifted its lid. "If you're going to face Whitmore and his crowd, you can't walk in with a toy keyboard. You need to practice on this. Real ivory. Real resonance." Marcus's eyes widened. He'd never touched a piano like this. "But I can't pay for that." James shook his head firmly. "You're my son. You'll never have to pay for anything in this store." Marcus hesitated, then sat down at the Steinway. His fingers trembled at first, then grew bolder as the keys responded like no instrument ever had. The sound was richer, deeper, alive. The workshop seemed to vibrate with his music. James placed his hands beside Marcus's, guiding his wrists. "Don't just press the keys. Let your whole arm speak." "The power comes from here." He demonstrated, and Marcus followed, the notes blooming into something bigger than either of them. They played for hours. James taught him breathing, phrasing, how to command a room. Marcus showed him the piece he wanted to perform at the gala, his own composition, not Whitmore's idea of real music. A piece about Chicago nights, about loss and survival, about hope in the darkest corners. When he finished, the last note hanging in the air, James was crying openly now. He pulled Marcus into a rough, awkward hug. "You're ready," he whispered, "and you won't be standing alone on that stage. I'll be in the crowd, son. I promise." Marcus's throat tightened. For the first time in years, he believed it. He wasn't alone anymore. The Whitmore Tower glittered like a blade against the Chicago skyline. On the 40th floor, Richard Whitmore stood at his wall of glass, scotch in hand, staring down at the city he believed he owned. Around him, his board members gathered, their chatter hushed. "Tomorrow night," Richard declared, "this little street kid becomes the perfect example, a spectacle. He'll play, he'll fail, and the world will see the truth about his kind." Some of the board laughed uneasily. Judge Marcus Blackwood did not. He leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Do you even hear yourself, Richard? He's 12. You're turning a child into your pawn." Richard sneered. "A child who begged on the sidewalk. If he really believes he belongs among us, let him prove it. Tomorrow he learns reality." Back at Wilson's Music, Marcus sat at the Steinway, his fingers trembling on the keys. James paced the workshop, Angela Robinson sat nearby, and Mike, the off-duty security guard, leaned in the doorway. The boys' music filled the room, soft at first, then swelling into defiance. Angela's phone buzzed. She answered, listening, her face growing pale. That was Victoria Chen, Whitmore's assistant. "She says tomorrow is a setup. Cameras everywhere. Reporters invited. Richard's billing it as Charity Meets Reality TV. He wants your failure broadcast live." Marcus froze. "So he wants the whole world to watch me crash?" James slammed his hand on the bench. "Then let him watch you soar instead." But Marcus's voice cracked, his age breaking through. "What if I choke? What if my hands freeze? What if I mess up and prove him right?" Silence fell. Then James knelt beside him. "Listen to me. You're not playing for him, or for his rich friends, or even for the cameras. You're playing for your mother, for every kid at the shelter who's ever been told they're nothing. For yourself." Angela touched his shoulder gently. "Baby, remember, music isn't about them. It's about truth. You've already won by standing up to him. Tomorrow, all you need to do is play your truth." Before Marcus could reply, the shop bell chimed. Judge Blackwood stepped in, his presence commanding. "I shouldn't be here," he said quietly, "but I couldn't stay silent. Whitmore has arranged for a prodigy from the Chicago Symphony Youth Orchestra to perform after you, to show what real talent looks like. He's rigged it, Marcus. He's betting you'll break." Marcus's chest tightened. "Then I'll give him something he's never heard before." Blackwood's stern face softened, pride flickering in his eyes. "That's the spirit, son. I've arranged for 3 professional musicians to attend. They'll listen with real ears, not Whitmore's arrogance. Whatever happens, you'll have witnesses who understand what you're doing." The workshop was silent again, save for the ticking of the clock. Marcus set his hands on the Steinway one more time. The first notes came soft like a whisper, then stronger, fiercer, until the whole room seemed to vibrate. James watched, tears in his eyes. "They're not ready for you, Marcus," he whispered, "but they're going to hear you anyway." Outside, the city hummed. Tomorrow, in the golden glare of the Whitmore's ballroom, a child would step onto a stage meant to humiliate him, and maybe, just maybe, tear an empire apart with nothing but music. The Whitmore Grand Ballroom was a cathedral of wealth. Crystal chandeliers glittered, gold accents gleamed, and 500 of Chicago's richest men and women murmured over champagne. At the center of it all sat a Bosendorfer Imperial grand piano, raised on a platform like an altar waiting for sacrifice. Richard Whitmore stood tall, glass in hand, his silver hair catching the light. Cameras from Channel 7 and the Tribune hovered like vultures. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, "tonight is not just about charity. It's about opportunity. Last week I found a boy on the street, a so-called musician. I promised him a stage. If he can impress you, I'll adopt him. If not, perhaps he'll learn the value of honest work." The crowd chuckled, some uneasily, others with open cruelty. The service door creaked open. A guard nudged Marcus forward. His Goodwill suit hung awkwardly on his frame, shoes too tight, keyboard calloused fingers trembling. 500 pairs of eyes locked on him, heavy as chains. He spotted Judge Blackwood at the back, nodding solemnly. Angela, near the front, whispering encouragement. James Wilson, fists clenched. Richard's smirk cut the silence. "Well, boy, we're waiting. Show us your noise." Marcus sat at the piano. The keys were colder than ice. His chest tightened. For a moment he saw the crowd, the cameras, Richard's mocking grin, and then he closed his eyes. In his mind, he was 5 again, sitting beside his mother at their battered upright. Her voice whispered, "Tell your truth, baby." The first note rang out, soft but pure. Then another. A melody bloomed, fragile like a lullaby. The ballroom hushed. Glasses stilled. Breath slowed, then his left hand joined, weaving in darker tones. The lullaby fractured, became grief, became defiance. Jazz flickered into classical, chaos into harmony. His fingers flew across the keys, small hands summoning impossible chords. A diamond-clad woman gasped. A man who hadn't cried since his father's funeral felt tears burn. Even the cynical reporters leaned forward. Richard's smile faltered. This wasn't noise. This was brilliance. Marcus's music grew thunderous, pouring out nights on frozen sidewalks, days of hunger, the loneliness of the shelter, the voice of a mother who hummed until cancer stole her breath. Then it rose higher, beauty forged from suffering, strength carved from pain. When the climax hit, it was like the ceiling itself trembled. Then came silence. Not polite applause, silence, sacred silence, as if the whole room forgot how to breathe. Judge Blackwood began to clap. James joined. Then the entire room erupted, applause like thunder rolling across marble floors. People rose to their feet, shouting, weeping, recording. Marcus turned, his young face streaked with tears. His voice carried over the chaos. "That was for my mother. She taught me that music isn't about money or breeding. It's about truth. And the truth, Mr. Whitmore, is that you were wrong." All eyes swung to Richard Whitmore. His empire of arrogance cracked in that instant. 500 witnesses watching the downfall of a man undone by a child with nothing but a song. The ballroom was still echoing with applause, but Marcus wasn't smiling. He stood beside the piano, chest rising and falling, tears streaking his young face. 500 people had just witnessed what arrogance tried to bury, but the boy was not finished. He stepped forward, his small voice carrying over the chaos. "Mr. Whitmore, you said I would fail. You said kids like me don't belong in rooms like this. But tonight, you learned the truth. My mother taught me that music is proof that God loves us. That even when everything is taken, you can still create beauty. And beauty always finds its way to the light." The crowd erupted again. Some were shouting his name. Others were recording, their live streams exploding across social media. Let Marcus Play trended in minutes. Offers were shouted from every corner. Conservatory scholarships, recording contracts, invitations to symphonies. But Marcus shook his head. "I don't want to be your charity project. I don't want pity. I want every child like me to have the same chance. To be heard, to be seen, to be believed in." His words cut deeper than the music. Even the servers, invisible for years, clapped and cried openly. Judge Blackwood stepped forward. "Mr. Whitmore, you made a promise in front of this city. Keep your word, or let the world see what you truly are." Richard's face was gray. His hands trembled. The cameras caught everything. His cruelty exposed, his empire collapsing under the weight of a boy's truth. He muttered, "This wasn't supposed to happen." But Marcus didn't wait for him. He walked back to the piano, placed his hands on the keys and played one last piece, gentle, forgiving, haunting. A hymn his mother used to sing. Amazing grace, transformed by pain and love into something unearthly. By the final note, even Richard was weeping, broken. Marcus stood. "I don't need your adoption. I already have a family. I have my mother's memory, my father's music, my friends at the shelter, and everyone who believes talent doesn't care where you're born. That's enough. The applause was deafening, but Marcus only bowed once, then stepped off the stage, walking back to Angela and James. As the cameras followed him out, the world leaned closer, hungry, inspired, changed. And that's when the voice of the narrator breaks through. Dear friend, if this story touched you, don't let it end here. Remember, talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't. Share this story so no child feels invisible. Hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and rate this story out of 10. It helps us bring you more stories that matter. And if you're new here, subscribe now and turn on the bell so you never miss these true lessons of life. Because every story you share is one more bridge built, one more voice heard, one more truth that no arrogance can silence. The screen fades on Marcus walking into the night, his battered keyboard case on one shoulder, but this time not alone.